Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Kent Justice, your host for This Week in Jacksonville Business Edition. And our guest today is the former chief executive and chairman of Miller Electric. Ron Autrey spent 49 years with the company, joining Miller in 1975. Worked in every market area of the company, became chairman in 2012, succeeding his father. Ron's also a Jacksonville native who grew up north side. Thank you so much for joining us.
Happy to be here.
You and I had known each other just vaguely throughout the decades of the 2010s there, when I had just arrived in town and we'd see each other at perhaps a Chamber of Commerce event or that sort of thing. I'm really looking forward to hearing more. And part of the reason that we're talking is because there's a book out, and there's two books that we're going to talk about here that you've authored. But I really wanted to dive in a little bit to those years of experience that you have in business in our area. And here we are in 2025. I want to pick your brain a little bit. Tell us a little bit more, though, about that experience, those decades with Miller Electric and family business, obviously.
Thank you. It was an exciting time. When I joined the company in the 70s, the world was transitioning. I mean, even when I was in the Army prior to that, we had old tube set radios, and worked on top secret VHF radios that are in every boat and van across the world today. But I entered the electrical contracting business in a digital transformation, and companies, small and medium and large, were transitioning into a computer-based accounting and operations applications that didn't exist before for outside of the U.S. government. And so I was able to follow that track, which, as you know, technological advancements became exponential and greater than exponential.
The speed of change was incredible.
So I had 4 decades to ride that, and Jacksonville was a great place to do that. Much of my early career was spent in one of the largest data centers in Florida at the time, which was built by Barnett Banks. And Barnett Bank and another company, Ryder PIE, based here in Jacksonville, they had another large, relatively unknown data center. And that platform today, you can extrapolate 40 years into what some of my other family members are doing today for companies like Google and Facebook and their mega data centers. So it's been an exciting ride to take a company that built paper mills and power plants in the 60s and 50s and wired ships in World War II at Jacksonville shipyards and PT boats at the local boat yards and at Huckins. And so exciting, and I could spend days telling stories about those 4 decades.
Well, so you left your role with Miller as CEO in 2012, but then stayed as chairman. So obviously still connected and in some of those decision-making meetings. What do you see right now as the opportunities or challenges for companies like Miller or other companies here in Northeast Florida? In 2025, obviously the technology has changed, but even a political landscape has changed that I'm sure companies have to deal with as well.
You know, one of the things I learned early on from advice from my father, and also Jack Welch at GE, and he was generous in sharing his knowledge of how to perfect a business model. And what I would share with small and medium businesses in Jacksonville today is that you need to take responsibility for your own stability and growth and not rely on what you see about the national economy or even the local economy. You have to create your economy, whether that's through geographic or product diversification, or in Jack Welch's world, creating an exceptional business model that you can replicate. So if you want to do business in Lake City or Miami or Atlanta, or in my case, I was able to expand into 30 states because it was like moving somebody down the hall from a technological standpoint. Talking to an executive in Dallas was no different than zooming in with somebody in Orlando. And we built a perfect business model. We became more than just a subcontractor. We like to call ourselves a solutions provider. And that worked well. And through the world of technology, we became that provider with direct relationships to companies like Facebook and Google and the banks, Bank of America and the Blue Crosses with presence all over the United States.
Yeah. Ron, I'm leaning into what you just said about don't rely on somebody else about the local or federal economy, create your own economy. You're saying take responsibility on where your business is going. That's what it sounds like to me.
If you have a depression or a downturn in business, and I lived through a couple of them, when I was chairman of the Chamber of Commerce in Jacksonville, my speeches were not that popular during the recession of 2007. When I said create your own economy, I said I'm not going to sit here and wring my hands. I'm going to Dallas and I'm going to open a business with no customers. The first year we did $250,000 in revenue. The second year we did $6 million. The third year we did $20 million. Today we are still doing that and have done that now for a couple of decades. It was no different than me going to Lake City or to any other location. We did the same thing in Miami and Atlanta and Little Rock,
Wow.
Arkansas for Fidelity National. Companies like Fidelity National and Bank of America gave us the opportunity to expand with them.
Yeah. Ron, from your vantage point, what's changed now that we're into 2025? And again, what are maybe some of those challenges for businesses when it comes to success and even growth here in Northeast Florida in our region?
Well, the challenge can be supported by becoming, as my father used to say, the very best at what you do. If you're going to do it, pick a core competency, become absolutely the best so that people recognize that. Whether it's a service or a product, make it the very best and insert that into your business model and promote it to your customer base wherever that happens to be. And back to the GE model, make it something you can replicate in other locations.
So as we're talking through this, I've got a couple of books here. And what I read about you was, hey, when you retired, you said, I've always liked writing, let me write a book. So I've got a couple here that we're going to talk about, but are these business manuals? Are these, here's how you should run your business? Not at all, right?
Well, Ron's World, of course, has...
This says, Ron's World, All the Times I Died by Ron Autrey. Tell us what that's about.
Well, throughout my life, I encountered many opportunities to experience my own demise, generally through my own stupidity. So I had the unique ability to remember them in detail. So I chronicled some of them to break up the series of geopolitical historical events that happened over 7 decades. And I pulled excerpts from wars and famines and unrest around the world that I thought the reader maybe has forgotten or maybe never learned. And to break that up, I would stop and say, also that year, while crossing the road holding a can of refreshment, I passed 2 cars passed me in the middle of the road, and I watched as my life floated up above to the treetops. Numerous examples of boating incidents, just stupid little things that will make you laugh now. Yeah. Made my mother cry.
Sure, sure. So you referenced your father, and we talked about you succeeded him as chairman for Miller Electric.
Yeah.
They're still with us, is that right?
Yes.
How about that?
Dad is 92 years old. My mother will be 92 this May, when they'll also celebrate their 75th wedding anniversary.
Wow.
You know, some things I know people have read recently about the sale of Miller Electric Company, a legacy company sold for hundreds of millions of dollars, and that's news in itself. But what people don't realize that in 1966, when my father took over the business with Jane Wynn, who was the daughter of Henry Miller, who had passed away in the 50s, and revenue at that time was $250,000 a year. That was 1966. By 1976, it was $6 million. By 1986, it was $40 million. When I took over the company as CEO and president in 2000, I had an $80 million a year company. The field was already plowed, but we'd been there for nearly a decade. I was able to, with the expertise and experience of the people that we had assembled, literally grow the company to $350 million in 4 years and triple the net worth of the company through some of that expansion process that I mentioned earlier. So a lot of that history is in there, not in great detail, but and I remind people that while I had a great success, if I look back at my father at that $250,000, at the time he had almost twice that in debt. And all of the executives had left the company to go form Paxson Electric. Everybody remembers Wesley Paxson and the successful company that he built. Miller Electric, some 25 years later, acquired that company in the expansion process.
So obviously learned from Dad. I'm excited. You said, hey, having dinner with Mom and Dad soon. So that's an incredible blessing. One of the things that you're trying to do, I understand, is be a blessing to organizations and people throughout our area. Tell us about some of the philanthropy, some of the things that you're doing here in retirement to give back in our community.
We did a book signing for Ron's World. And invited the community at the beaches, and in a 2-hour session, we were able to raise $50,000 for Canines for Warriors.
No kidding, wow.
So the books were free. The attendance you had to pay, and people eagerly sponsored at various levels to help Canines for Warriors. We have another one planned for Operation New Uniform to replicate that success, hopefully. It was scheduled for September 20th. Due to unfortunate circumstances, we've had to reschedule that for later in the fall. I'll also be doing another mega book signing, I hope, for Tunnels to Towers. We've established a relationship with that organization to get their support and allow me to use their logo and various references, and we will promote an event this winter to support that organization.
Well, and so those 3 organizations you just mentioned are connected to serving or helping veterans. Is that a passion for you, having served in the Army as well?
Yes. And my career in the Army was, I shouldn't call it a career. I enlisted in the Army and I served for a short time, and it was one of the most rewarding periods of my life, which says a lot given all that I have enjoyed through the last 7 decades. But Operation New Uniform does a fabulous job in transitioning retiring military folks into the business world and professional life. And getting that helping hand can mean so much, as you surely know.
Michelle McManaman, leader of ONU, and obviously those aren't the only veteran service organizations around, but there's some of the good ones that you obviously know are going to make a difference in people's lives. Ron, as we wrap up our conversation here, and we're at the end of March as we're talking right now, some turbulence in the stock market that we see. There's the potential of a trade war or trade wars going on because of tariffs. There's uncertainty going on right now. How would you advise business people to use that information?
Focus, again, not to ignore it. We are in a turbulent time, but focus on your core competency and make it the very best that it can be. If it's something that people need, they will still buy it. They still need it. It's the toilet paper example, and it's true and it works well. Maybe you need a new product line. Maybe you need to refine what you're doing. But there are opportunities there even in adverse times. and you just have to work to find them.
Yeah. Ron Autrey, I appreciate it. Past chairman and CEO of Miller Electric, our guest today. And we thank you so much for joining us for this week in Jacksonville Business Edition. We invite you to like, follow, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And new episodes drop every Thursday at 9 a.m. Thanks again.